The morning sun was only half awake, its golden rays spilling gently across the dry Texas grass. The windmill creaked in the distance, its slow turning blending with the low hum of the prairie wind. Jackson leaned against the wooden fence, one hand resting on the rough timber, the other shielding his tired eyes from the light. He had built that fence himself. 40 years ago, every post, every strand of wire. Back then his hands were steady, his back straight, and his heart full of hope. After the war, this ranch had been his refuge, a place where the noise of battle finally faded into the songs of crickets and the rustle of cattle. Now, that same fence was the line that divided not just land, but blood. A pickup truck rumbled to a stop near the barn. Out stepped Eli, Jackson's only son, tall, broad-shouldered, wearing the same stubborn look his father once had. Beside him, his wife Clara folded her arms, her eyes sharp and cold like the metal on the badge pinned to Marshall Reed's chest. Jackson straightened, though the years had bent him slightly. "You're early," he said, his voice calm but worn thin. Eli didn't return the greeting. "You knew we'd come," he said. "We've got the papers." Jackson blinked, trying to steady his breath. "Papers?" Clara took a step forward, holding out a folded document. "The will," she said. Ma left it clear. "The land past that fence belongs to us now." Jackson's heart skipped. "The will?" he repeated softly. He turned his head toward the porch where an old woman stood trembling, Mary, his wife of 50 years. Her hands were clasped around a shawl, her face pale as dust. "I didn't sign," Jackson began, but the words caught in his throat. Eli interrupted, pointing toward the fence. "You've been running your cattle past the line for months, Pa. We've told you to move them back." "But you didn't listen." Jackson's lips quivered. "That line's been the same since your grandfather marked it out with his own hands." Clara shook her head. "No, the county map says different." "And the will agrees. You can check it with Marshall Reed if you don't believe us." Marshall Reed stood silent beside them, hat low over his eyes. He wasn't a cruel man, just one who followed orders. "Mr. Jackson," he said softly, "I'm afraid the law's on their side." For a long moment, nobody spoke. Only the sound of the wind pressed between them, whistling through the grass like a whisper of the past. Jackson turned toward Mary, searching her eyes for something, anything, to hold on to. But Mary just lowered her face and covered it with her hands. That broke him. "You stole our land," he said, his voice cracking, trembling with the weight of years and disappointment. "Everything I built, you're tearing it apart." Eli looked away, jaw tight. "It's not stealing if it's legal." "Legal?" Jackson repeated bitterly. "Since when did a piece of paper mean more than blood?" Clara crossed her arms again. "Since always, old man. The law doesn't care about your memories." The words hit like a bullet. Jackson stumbled forward, gripping the fence for balance. For the first time in his life, the land beneath his boots didn't feel like home. The sun climbed higher, washing the plains in harsh light. Dust swirled around the boots of the small crowd. Jackson's mind drifted back to the war, to nights in the trenches, praying to live long enough to see this place again. He had returned broken but determined, and this ranch had been his redemption. He'd planted every tree, fixed every roof beam, and saved every dollar to keep it running. And now his own son stood across the fence, treating him like a stranger trespassing on his own dreams. He wanted to shout, to fight, but his voice betrayed him. "Eli," he said softly, "do you even remember the day we laid this fence? You were just a boy. I lifted you up so you could hammer the first nail." Eli's expression flickered, but only for a moment. "That was a long time ago," he said. Mary sobbed quietly behind them. "Please," she whispered, "can't we talk about this inside?" But Clara's tone was cold. "We've talked enough." "He's had months to move." He chose not to. Marshall Reed took off his hat, running a hand through his hair. "Mr. Jackson, maybe it's best if you come with me for now. Let things cool down." Jackson's shoulders slumped. "You're asking me to walk off my own land." "I'm asking you to keep your dignity," the marshal replied. The silence that followed felt heavier than any gunfire Jackson had ever heard. He finally nodded, slowly, painfully, and turned toward the open field. Each step felt like goodbye. By evening, the sky burned orange. Jackson sat alone near the fence, the same fence that had once defined his hard work, and now his defeat. He watched the dust trail fade as Eli's truck drove away. Mary came out quietly, holding a folded letter. "It's from the lawyer," she said. Jackson didn't look up. Let me guess, it confirms everything. No, Mary whispered, handing it to him. It says something else. He unfolded the paper with shaking hands. The words blurred through tears, but one line stood out. In the absence of a signed transfer, the original deed remains valid under Jackson's name. He looked up sharply. What does that mean? Mary hesitated. It means Clara changed the will after my sister's death, without telling anyone. The wind paused as if the earth itself had gone still. Jackson stared at her, the letter trembling between his fingers. She forged it. Mary nodded, tears spilling down her cheeks. I didn't want to believe it, but the lawyer confirmed. The new version was filed 2 months after Eli took over the finances. For a long while, Jackson said nothing. The fury he'd expected to feel never came. Instead, there was only sadness, deep and endless, like the prairie sky above him. He folded the letter carefully, slid it into his pocket, and looked across the fence toward the house that once echoed with laughter. Then I'll let them have it, he said quietly. Let the land choose who it remembers. Mary looked confused. You're not going to fight? Jackson smiled faintly. Fighting's all I've ever done, Mary. Maybe it's time to let peace have a turn. Days passed. The town talked, of course. They always did. Some said the old man had lost his mind. Others said he was too proud to beg. But Jackson didn't care. He moved into a small cabin by the creek, just beyond the ridge, where the sunset hit the water like gold. He started mending tools for nearby ranchers, fixing hinges, sharpening blades. Word spread that the old war vet still had the steadiest hands in the county. Sometimes at dusk, he'd ride his horse up the hill and look down at the ranch that used to be his. He'd see the new fence posts gleaming in the light, the same fence that had once divided him from his son. But now, he didn't feel anger. Only a strange, quiet peace. One afternoon, as the air turned cool, a truck approached his cabin. Eli stepped out, older, thinner, and hollow-eyed. He looked around, unsure how to start. Pa, he said finally. Jackson didn't speak, just kept polishing the horseshoe in his hand. Eli swallowed hard. Clara's gone. She left last month. Took the money and, well, everything. Jackson stopped, set the horseshoe down, and met his son's gaze. I'm sorry, son. Eli's voice broke. You were right about the land. About the papers. I checked. It's still yours. Jackson nodded slowly. It doesn't matter anymore. Eli looked at the ground. It does to me. I came to say, I was wrong. The silence that followed wasn't heavy this time. It was healing. Jackson stood, walked over and placed a firm hand on Eli's shoulder. You're still my boy, he said. Eli closed his eyes, tears rolling down his face. I don't deserve that. No one ever does, Jackson said softly. That's what forgiveness is for. The wind picked up again, carrying the scent of earth and rain. The sky above the prairie stretched endless and free. That night, father and son sat on the porch of the little cabin, saying nothing, just listening to the crickets, to the wind, to the sound of fences mending in the heart. The ranch was still there in the distance, glowing under the moonlight. The fence still stood, but it no longer divided. It simply marked where love had been tested and quietly, patiently, found its way home again.